welcome back to the 4 Pillars of Healing. Before we begin this episode today, I just want to gently let you know that this episode includes very honest, unfiltered conversations around grief, the loss of a child, mental health, and suicide awareness. These are very tender and deeply human topics shared from the heart, and as always on the podcast with the intention to bring light, awareness, and connection. Scott and I speak very, very candidly and from the heart, which means there will be moments of raw language and unfiltered truth. Nothing is said for shock value, and it's simply part of how we each move through our stories, our healing, and how we honor the realities that we live. Please take care of yourself as you listen. Pause if something hits too hard, and reach out if you need support. We're not here to fix or rush healing, just to hold space for real stories spoken by real people with love. So today on the podcast, I've got someone whose story has honestly deeply moved me, not only because of what he's lived through, but because of how he continues to show up for others with so much heart, honesty, and courage. This is Scott. He's an everyday Aussie father, navigating life after the unimaginable loss of his son and his absolute best mate, Henry. After bravely beating leukemia, Henry tragically passed away due to a medical mishap and was struck down by the drugs he was given. And while that kind of grief can bring even the strongest to their knees, Scott has chosen to rise not just for himself, but also for Henry and for every other soul out there quietly carrying their own storm. In honor of Henry, whose passion was motorbikes and always putting others first, Scott now shares his story to help those who are struggling through fundraising efforts like the Push-Up Challenge for farmers' mental health. And recently, he's just done a 63-kilometre walk for Out of the Shadows in honor of Lifeline. His raw truth-telling and his unique mix of humour and vulnerability, and even through his now iconic shirtless wood-chopping videos on the farm, he's become a powerful and relatable voice for mental health and suicide prevention, especially within the farming communities, where these conversations are often the hardest to have. This episode isn't just about loss, it's about legacy, and it's about resilience, and it's about the unwavering strength it takes to keep going when life completely breaks you and leaves your heart wide open. Scott, thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute privilege to hold space for your story and to let Henry's light continue to shine through you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we've only recently connected online, and that was through randomly one of your posts popped up on my Instagram feed, and it just happened to be the day of Henry's anniversary of his passing. And there was just something about the way that you spoke in your video. It was raw. It was very honest. There was no fluff, just your whole heart laid bare. And that really hit me. Like, it really genuinely did. And I remember there sitting and watching and just thinking, this is just fucked. I remember when my husband passed away and I came home to the kids, or with the kids, and I sat on the couch, and I remember thinking to myself, the only thing that would be more fucked than this is if I lost one of the kids. Like, that would be the only thing that would be harder. And that memory for me just came flooding back when I watched that video.
Yeah,
and I've been following along your story ever since.
Thank
But
you.
before we go into the real hard parts of the story, I'd love to begin by honoring Henry and you. And so can you tell us a little bit about Henry, what sort of kid he was, what would light him up, what would make him laugh, and your bond as a father and son?
Henry was he was an old soul. Would have an adult conversation. Don't get me wrong, he would play with kids and do all that sort of stuff, but he would sit there and have an adult conversation with any walks of life. He was one of them kids that would just gravitate to old, middle-aged, young. It didn't matter, male, female, honestly didn't matter. Funny enough, like kids love a bedtime story and stuff like that. This kid, it was extreme. He would watch fishing documentaries. He would watch like building hut documentaries. He would watch replays of motorbike riding. It was a phenomenal kid. And he just had this heart that he just cared for everyone. He would put everyone first before himself. I recall a time in the hospital, he would literally say to me, "Oh, it's all right, Dad. I'll get better. There's worse kids than me." For a 7-year-old to come out with words like that, it's like, It's like they've been here before.
Yeah, profound.
And the way he cared for his sisters and just everyone, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Oh, he sounded like a very beautiful little boy.
Eh,
And you can really feel the love that you have for him. It's so clear how strong your bond was and still is. It very much still is.
Definitely, yeah.
Um, and those memories are really, really sacred to have. And as a mum, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like watching your son go through something like that at such a young age, at any age, but especially a young age. Would you be open to sharing a little bit about that time and what it was like walking through Henry's leukemia diagnosis and his journey?
Yeah, of course. It was just before November in 2022. He was just a bit off coloured and a little bit tired. Now, I said to my partner at the time, just go to the doctors and request a blood test because I know what doctors are like. They're gonna, let's check this, let's check that, let's do this. No, 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 no. Just tell me on a blood test instantaneously and be done with it. That was done, and we were sent straight to the Royal Children's Hospital once the results came in. Henry was a little bit off coloured, and I started calling him, what was I calling him? Bart Simpson or something because he was a bit yellow. Him and I had a fair bit of banter.
Yeah.
And I remember I've always been just petrified of the Royal Children's Hospital. Sick kids, male kids, it absolutely tears me apart. And I just never thought I'd be able to walk in that place. But when it's your own son or your own child, I don't know what changes, but you just do it. You just somehow everything inside you is like just straight through that front door. At this stage, when we walked in, we still didn't know what was going on. We still hadn't been told. We're in the emergency department.
You just got told to go to the hospital and that was
Correct.
it.
Yeah, it's about, we got there probably 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. It's a 2-hour drive from here.
Mm.
We finally spoke to someone, seen someone, and then they told us at that time, your whole world just flips upside down. You're trying to keep it together. You got this child in the bed, has no idea what we're talking about. You are trying not to break as a parent, and then having to explain it to at the time, a 6-year-old. We were very lucky that Henry was very level-headed and very understanding, and he took it actually a lot better than I did. I explained it very thoroughly, and he just, yep, yep. He's a bit upset about it. Didn't like the needles, of course. What kid does? Yeah, and that's where I had a funny feeling when they sent us there that I wasn't coming home. So I packed a bag because I knew that I wasn't coming home, and the process started. So we stayed there. I couldn't tell you how many weeks we were in the hospital before we were able to go to an apartment, which we still had to be very close to the hospital. And once again, that was very expensive. And my partner at the time and I were obviously alternating. Once again, that creates another gap
Dynamic.
in a dynamic in a relationship. That's, you literally walk in, hug, kiss, this is what's going on, change over, I'm back in a couple of days. Yeah, so Henry took it. He was fucking unbelievable. He was unreal. He just drew pictures, took every single tablet, drug, needle, every single thing they said. He didn't miss one thing. It might have been Christmas. Or might have been the day after. I can't quite remember when he came home, but he was home pretty much for Christmas, and he was in remission. He'd smashed it. He was good. Obviously, we still had to go there every week, get some tests and whatnot. But he was back home. First day of school came around. He wasn't. I don't think he went the first day, but the next day he went to school. So he started the new year, and he was all excited because he obviously went with his sister. She was starting prep, and yeah, we thought everything was good. Like we got, he's fine. He's healthy. He's still had a line in, and we had to watch that. But he's healthy. He's cancer free. He's happy. He's eating. Everything's good. Besides, he's just missing a bit of hair. Which he made a bit of fun out of it, and he shaved
Yeah.
my head as well at the same
Yeah.
time. So, um, Yeah, and within a short amount of time, he was back riding motor. Come, I think it was early April on 2023, they've got a thing called readmission. So this is where they bring him in. Uh, they do it with adults too, and they, even though you're cancer free, everything's good. They hit you again with chemo heavily. This is something I tried to deny and say, no, I don't want to borrow this. Now, you'd think as a parent you've got a choice. You don't have a choice. That system has you under the thumb, and it's fucked. You can't. I tried to. I said, like, what happens if we say no? We call Child Protection Services. What the fuck? So we've got a healthy child here. He's fine. I'm telling him what's going on. He doesn't want to have the drugs, but we have to explain to, this doctor's textbook says,
Yeah.
which is, and I'm not
Computer
agreeing with
says.
it at all. And I'm like, well, I don't really care what your textbook says.
Mm,
Years of treatment. Do you know what actually I copped? 50 years of treatment says. I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they re-hit Henry the drug asparaginase. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a big word. I'm only a farmer.
You're not only a farmer.
Top firewood. Anyway, he wasn't able to go back to school, obviously, because that drug's pretty heavy and it knocks the immune system around a bit. Now, the last time they gave him this drug, they gave him a antifungal treatment, obviously, to stop any fungal infections. This time they didn't because his neutrophil levels were pretty good. Would have been maybe a week, maybe a bit more after he was given that drug, he got a fever. So he went to the hospital, back to the Royal Children's Hospital with the fever, which they monitored for a few days, took some blood tests. We're giving him Panadol to bring the fever down. And on the fourth day, they sent him, at the time, protocol is on fifth day, start antifungal, not send home with Panadol. So yeah, that's when it all
To shit.
went to shit. Yeah,
Mm. Oh, mate.
pretty shitful.
Ruthless.
Just incompetent doctors.
Yeah. Do you know what? When you told me that the other day, I
Yeah,
was just,
yeah.
there's
It was
no
like
words.
reliving it again, isn't it? It's just like, oh my
It
God.
is completely, because that's exactly what happened to us.
Yeah,
With John's brain cancer, and unfortunately for
you'd be
him, he was
surprised.
diagnosed with glioblastoma, and their computer tells them that he's got a 1% survival, and that's just it. And, they wanted to give him chemo and radiation, even though, they told us that chemo doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, so therefore it's never going to get to the cancer. So why on earth would you put, like, in our logical mind at that time, it was sort of, why would we, we're if we're looking at a 1%er, quality over quantity at this
Yeah,
point is the importance. And we tried everything, we did everything, and we were unfortunately in the COVID craziness, just like you guys would have been because literally it was the timing of it
yeah,
all as well. Henry, you guys were diagnosed just as John died. Like literally he died at the end of October 2022. And, it was 5 months of just, when he had his seizure, they took him in an ambulance, but they wouldn't let me go in an ambulance because I was not COVID vaccinated. But John wasn't COVID vaccinated either. So, but they took him in the ambulance. Like it was just, they wouldn't let us in the hospital for 36 hours, and he had to advocate for himself after just having, a humongous seizure. But that's digressing back to.
Did they make him get the COVID vaccine after that?
No, no way. No, I didn't leave his side every time he was in the hospital, because there was
Because of that.
just what they were saying versus what was logical just didn't add up for us. And it was a very fractured 6 months for him. And we stayed away as much as we could. We kind of went on our own little journey, and we couldn't, ideally we would have gone to Mexico to hope for cancer clinic in Mexico, but we couldn't do that because we were locked in our state at the time because we weren't vaccinated. So there was many, many things stacked against, and, John unfortunately had an infection in his body and he was put on dexamethasone. and dexamethasone crosses the blood-brain barrier. And as soon as he was put on that drug, he literally went downhill. So we were desperately trying to get him off it because the side effects were just insane. And we got him down to just taking 1.5 milligrams. And he went into hospital because he wasn't dealing with the side effects. And they suggested to come in and, we'll put you on the palliative care ward because there's more drugs available to us at the drop of a hat versus going onto a ward. And it snowballed from there because there was a miscommunication between the admitting doctor and the doctor that was on call that Friday night. And he wasn't given any drugs until I'd gone home after 10 o'clock that night. And they gave him 6 times more steroid than what he was actually on, and 4 times more anti-seizure medication because he was put on the palliative care ward and there was improper communication. And he had the 1% cancer. They just assumed he was at end of life and started treating him as such.
Yeah. And it's pretty much
And that was the beginning of the end.
Once you're in that ward, it's pretty much unscripted drugs. It's just like,
oh, you're fucked. I remember leaving him that night and he just broke down saying, I don't think I'm coming out of here. And I was like, don't be stupid. He wouldn't
have thought that, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucked. It was just the worst of the worst. And, it's these stories are important to talk about because there's so many of them, as you have said yourself this week. Many times you've heard.
Yes, I've had so many people reach out, like, we're going through the same thing. This is what they're doing. Like, holy fuck. Or other people that have gone through it. I remember after it happened and finally started, back at work and catching up with a few mates and stuff. A couple of my own mates literally nearly died from the exact same drug.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't want to bring it up at the time. Look, it's so fresh. But I'm like,
yeah.
What the? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we were lucky in one sense because we had the choice, and that's the choice that you guys didn't have, which is brutal. Not being able to be in charge of your own, being informed and following your informed choice and having that informed choice taken away from you is just not okay, Yeah.
And then you play it all back in your head constantly too. You're like,
of course you do.
The what ifs, like, if I had spoke up even harder, like I know there's a few times I was borderline going to get kicked out of the hospital because I was probably a bit. But as a parent, what parent wouldn't? Like, I'm not going to get pushed over when I know something's not right. But then I had to obviously bite my tongue as well because I don't want to be kicked out of the hospital and not be there for my son. So it was a very fine line. And when I'm yelling at doctors, fucking do something. What you're doing is not right. This is not, what are you talking about? Come on. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just so sorry.
Yeah, but look, I said you got nothing to say. Be sorry for.
No,
it's not your doings, and
no.
Yeah, it is what it is, and we sort of have to step through it now, and as I say, claw our way to find some happiness.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Thank you for taking us there.
It's all right. There's a little more to take for later.
The strength it would have taken for Henry himself and for your family just to get through each part of that, and to be told that he's beaten something and then still go through the unimaginable. I can't imagine that.
Oh, it's horrible, especially when it's in such a short time. Like, when someone might say, "Oh, you got a couple of months to live." This kid was fine. He was good. He's back at school. Like, we thought everything was fine. We're back to normal. We're healthy kid. We're good. We're sweet. We're out.
Yeah.
And then, within 2 weeks, like sick to gone, it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So he got the fever, 5 days. We got back up there the Tuesday. No, he came home on the Sunday. I had an in-depth conversation. He came home on Sunday and he was in his bedroom. I actually had an in-depth conversation with him on the Sunday. He was in his room. And I said to my partner at the time, I'm like, "Where's Henry?" He's in his room. He's got the shits on. I'm like, okay. So I went in there and speak to him. I'm like, "What's going on, mate?" He's like, "You need to help mum with the girls a bit more." I'm like, "I'm trying, mate. But I've also got to work too." But by that stage, some bills had cranked up a fair bit. I had quite a few staff and numerous trucks and machines and all sorts of. It wasn't just the farm. It was, an earth moving company plus a freighting company. There was so much going on. I was running it from my phone in a hospital, and it was. it was getting pretty heavy. It was getting hard. I said to him, I said, look, I'm trying, mate. I've got to work. And I remember him looking down at his money box and he goes, well, I don't need that anymore. I said, oh, I can't take your money box. He goes, there's a lot of money now. So no, we'd been racing this to fill up our money boxes. It's one of those, it was a big one. It was chockers. And I'm like, no, that's yours, mate. And then no joke, it was literally 2 days. The
I don't
day
know.
or the next day, he's in our beanbag in the lounge room trying to put some Lego together and in and out of consciousness, onto the phone call to the hospital, like he's still got this fever, this is his temperature, da da da. It's okay, you're back up here on such and such day, and just keep giving him Panadol, and yep, still give him the steroid tablet. I mean the chemo tablet, and I remember, the following day, I'm like, nah, they can get fucked. Like, I'm putting him in the car, I threw him in the patrol, and I remember driving there and we're calling him and they're like, no, go to Geelong Hospital. I'm there for like, he's treating hospitals, the Royal Children's Hospital. Why are we in Geelong Hospital? It's like, it's just like a little handball. Oh, they're just a helicopter parent. Don't worry about it. And the kid's fine. Like, he was here a couple of days ago. Like, fuck off. And
Yeah.
we went to the Geelong Hospital. I remember he went to get out of the car. He goes, Dad, my legs aren't working. Holy fuck. And I remember picking him up and then carried him in. And I've got a sick kid there. And they're like, oh, take a seat. I'm like, get fucked. Open that fucking back door. I'm like literally trying to kick the door. I'm like, just let us in. Like, you can see he has cancer, or had cancer. You can see he's got no hair. Like,
Mm.
you can see how sick he is. Open the door. We'll figure out the paperwork later. And they did. They let us through, and they done obviously a blood sugar thing, and it wouldn't even register. It just said low, and it took him ages to get blood. There was no blood. And by that stage, he hadn't passed urine for a couple of days. And then yeah, they still gave him the goddamn chemo tablet while I was in the hospital. Mind you, his kidneys had stopped. And yeah, the Geelong Hospital really made a dick of themselves and stuffed up a lot for a few days.
Mm.
To the point where Henry took a catheter without any local or anything, because he didn't want any more drugs because he knew that's what was making him sick. So he stayed awake for a catheter. As a male, a catheter is like so painful. I've had one awake and I'm like, I told him, I said, mate, they want to give you a drug for a catheter. I'm telling you now, it's going to fucking hurt if you stay awake, but it's up to you. He's like, I'm staying awake, Dad. And he stayed awake for it because he knew the drugs were killing him. He knew that's what was doing it. And, he's telling me that, Dad, I want to go to my hospital. Like, I want to go to the Royal Children's Hospital. And I'm asking the doctors, like, why? Where's the ambulance? Why aren't we going to the Royal Children's Hospital? And, one of the doctor at the time that was treating Henry turned around. I'll never forget it. I'd love to name his name, but I won't. Turns around and says to me, they have 50 people in ED at the Royal Children's Hospital, basically stating that they won't see Henry. I'm like, he's an outpatient of the Royal Children's Hospital. We don't have to worry about ED. We go straight in. What are you talking about? Like, but at that time, I'm so
Yeah.
lost that I
Hindsight.
allowed this
Amazing.
doctor to tell me this shit, and I'm like, the fuck? But I'll never forget those words. Like, yeah, that prick.
Yeah.
And then obviously we ended up in ICU in Geelong Hospital, and they did everything they can, and he's laying on this bed, and they've got lines in him everywhere, and my partner at the time's laying there with him, and it's basically a theatre room where you're laying and just like waiting. It's like a waiting game for what?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Get a fucking ambulance. Get us to where we need to be.
Mm.
And then they finally did a few days later, and after being in the Geelong Hospital, and got to the Royal Children's Hospital. And I'll never forget, we get in there, the partner of time and Henry went in the ambulance, and I drove up and met him up there. The treating doctor that was in ICU walks in, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He was scared. And he turned to us and goes, this is serious, guys. No fucking shit. We've been saying it for a week. The kid's never thrown a fever ever. And now he's got a fever. Like, we've been trying to say this, but no one would fucking listen. Then they obviously done scans and stuff. They found a clot above his kidneys. And at that stage, I was, as a parent, I'm like, oh, well, I'm donating a kidney. That's like, I don't care. Whatever. Like, it's my child. Like, I'd change spots if I could, like, instantaneously. Any real parent will. And I remember I went home that night because obviously only one parent could stay. And then I'm driving back in the morning, and I remember being on the phone to my mum, obviously bawling my eyes out, but knowing that I'll be able to give him something from me to help that out. By the time I got there, that had all changed. He had a clot above there, obviously a fungal infection clot. And they had to go up through his groin. They were talking about going up through his groin and trying to get it and take it out. And I remember wheeling him down to the theatre room. I remember him laying there, and he goes, "I'm scared, Dad." And I said, "I know you are, mate. I am too." I said, "Don't worry. I'll be here when you wake up." They never woke him up. So
I'd be sorry.
he didn't get all the clot, and obviously the clot spread and little pieces went everywhere. Been a fungal infection. It got into everything. They had him on dialysis, blood thinners. Like you've seen the photos of all the shit plugged into him. He just like 2 weeks ago, this kid was riding a bloody motorbike.
Well, yeah.
What the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have cancer.
Mm.
Fuck. And then the following day after that operation, we could have woke him up. I know in my heart we could have woke him up, and I could have had a conversation with my son and explained to him what was going on. Yes, of course, it's going to be emotional. But we could have shared words, words that could be used to comfort his sisters in years to come. But those fucking hospitals and doctors, they don't see it like that. That's just a weekly paycheck. There was none of that. Following day, I think it's following day, I had to make that decision. Now to turn his machines off. And you're sitting there holding your son while his heart stops.
I am so sorry. I just can't imagine. And I've been through it. But when it's your kid, it's another level of there's just no words actually. It's another level. And there's nothing that anybody can say to make that better.
Never.
At all. There's
ruthless. A lot I can say there's a lot I can say to stop other parents going through the same shit.
I'm sure there is.
Which is why I say it.
Yeah.
Because if I can help others from fucking going through that shit, because I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. And that's turning some of that pain into something purposeful, and that's Correct. A legacy for Henry,
Correct.
Shared experiences are so important, and every experience is deeply personal to the person going through the experience, but where there can be decisions that can be looked at from a different way and a different angle through a lived experience. It's not saying that something is wrong, but to open up a conversation around, looking at, well, how can we, if we didn't do that and that didn't work for us, what could have worked, and that is what helps other people, it's so important. And then obviously that sets you on this journey of just indescribable pain. Yeah. And there's no roadmap for it at all. Grief is just, you just have to learn to survive. It's a journey. It's not a destination. You're never going to get off the frigging carousel of grief because the person that should be here isn't. So there is no destination for it. It is just learning how to put one foot in front of the other somehow. And the scenery on that journey, it's different for everybody. Anyone going through grief based on their own relationship with the person that's passed, it's entirely different. I know for me, I lost my partner. My kids lost their dad. I grew up without a dad. So for me, it's such a different relationship to the person, so you're finding yourself guiding not only yourself, and it's uncharted territory completely, but then you're also trying to guide your little people through it, at the same time. It's just ruthless.
Yeah.
Can you share as a father what changed in you after his passing, and how did that grief first show up for you?
I guess at the very start, I think reality hadn't set in to an extent. Obviously, that person's gone. You're never seeing them again, but the reality of it's not there. I think it took some time for it to sort of set in. I found myself working. I went back to work. I think that was my way of dealing with what happened. I think that was just my answer to disconnect from reality, I guess. I found myself working some very silly hours. I'd come home, I'd sit in a chair, I'd stare at the wall. I wouldn't even be in the lounge room with the family. I wasn't drinking inside the house, but I did find myself having a few beers around the farm, which I always had done. But maybe the mind frame wasn't the right position for it to be happening. This probably went on for a few months, and I pulled it in a bit, and I tried to navigate it myself, and I thought I was doing pretty well, but I guess I wasn't doing that great with it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably didn't answer your question there, but
No, you did. No, you did.
yeah, it's the reality probably never ever comes to you for it. Like you're always looking, like just a little
Yeah.
sign. You just waiting for that person to walk around the corner sometimes.
Yeah. But also going into yourself and withdrawing is grieving. And also
of
throwing
course.
yourself into work and being busy and trying not to feel it is grieving. Like it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
relevant. Just because you're not on the floor in floods of tears doesn't mean that you're not grieving or you're not moving with the emotions, And it's
Yeah.
all relative. It's all part of the experience. I threw myself, we had businesses as well, that we both worked in together, and all of a sudden that left to me with, 3 kids, and I've only made that. I busied myself, but also tried to bring the 2 businesses together as well under the one roof, just to try and make life easier, and obviously navigating the
Simplify.
kids through it. So I got really conscious of how many days I was working. So I sort of condensed it down into 3 days as much as I could. So and then, the kids came out of school, and there was homeschooling in that as well. So it was a lot. And we had to move house, and like there was just a lot. That first 12 months, then they tell you not to make any big crazy decisions. And I feel like I made all of the big crazy decisions because I had no choice.
But you had no choice.
Had no choice. Exactly. And, and people, say, oh, you're so strong. And it's like, well, yeah, I've got no other choice. You've got no other choice. There is no other choice. And that strength can be worn as armor. And, it takes a big person to look at what they're doing and go, do you know what? This isn't working. This is like, I need to do more. And that's what you've done, mate. You've recognized those things. It's not looking back and going, I should have done. Hindsight's fucking brilliant
It's fucking
in many. Yeah.
It's fucking
But at the time, it serves no purpose, So it's do what you can only do what you can do in that moment. And, and you've walked it the best that you possibly can for you, and because ultimately everybody's grief journey is for themselves. Yes, there's a collective in the family grief, but your relationship with your son is different to his sisters and his mom. And, like everybody's experience of that journey is different. And you've navigated it the best way that you can, which is not the wrong way. It's the right way for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what worked at the time.
Pardon?
It's what worked at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And what worked at that time might not work next week,
Definitely.
Because the more we travel on the journey, the more of a lived experience you've got on the journey.
Yep.
So you look at it differently. I'd love to ask, have you felt the pressure in your own journey to just stay strong? And how have you found your way through it, especially when it feels like, I know for me, it really feels like, especially early on, that the world keeps existing and it keeps spinning, but you're standing on a completely different axis point. So although the world is still spinning, your world, it's like time has completely stood still. So how did
Yeah.
you navigate through that point? Because that's quite a pivotal point, I think.
Well, I had to find purpose pretty quick. Obviously, I touched on the drinking and the working too much. But in my own mind, I had to find some way of honouring Henry.
Yeah.
And Henry loved the bikes. He loved motorbikes. He was always out riding his motorbike when he could, and always talking about different motorbike races. Even as a little kid, he told a cop that his name was Graham Jarvis. Obviously a lot of people don't know who Graham Jarvis is, but they call him the GOAT. He's a 50-year-old man that is still putting it up there against the best in the world. He's still rated in the top 10, and he's 50. And he told the local cop that his name was Graham Jarvis.
Oh, bless him.
And they're like, oh my gosh. The local cop still talks about it. He goes, I can't believe he lied to me. Uh, yeah. He's like 3 years old at the time.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Like straight out. It's like, bam, oh, you little criminal. And that's when I recognised that, I got to find some way to honour him. And he was always at me, Dad, how come you don't race motorbikes anymore? Or, how come you don't ride anymore? I was always making excuses, I guess. Got you bloody kids and chasing you kids and have to work and this and that. And I went off and I ordered a new race bike a few months after he passed, and oh, I went back racing bikes. I was very bike fit, and I guess that was, and I just went out and done it. I thought, you know what, win, lose, place, it doesn't matter as long as he's there with me, So
Yeah.
I guess that's what I used.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's such a great way to honour him, though, in the way that
Yeah.
he obviously looked up to you, with your racing background, and he loved his race. He loved riding around on his
He
bike,
loved,
and
he
that's
loved riding
such a,
bikes and he loved,
yeah, yeah,
watching the racing, yeah. And I just, I think that's just what kept me going. That was the start of the turning point, I think,
yeah,
of finally,
pulling yourself
having a
out.
smile again
Yeah,
and having some happiness,
yeah. Doing
even though that
something
he's
with
gone.
purpose instead
Yeah,
of
yeah,
doing something
yeah.
because you've just got to do it.
Yeah, that's right. That was
Yeah,
something that, like, I didn't have to do it, but it was something that was like, well, and
yeah.
then I had a who had done artwork for Henry, and unfortunately he never got the chance to give Henry the Indigenous artwork, and that is now my race jerseys.
Mm,
My jerseys, that artwork, that Indigenous artwork, and just little things like that. And I just know that, Henry's there with me. So
yeah.
every now and again when I'm in a real shit spot, trying to get up this real godforsaken hill, I'm like, come on, little fella, do something for me because I can't get this bike up there.
Yeah, you didn't
So,
just pick regular
nah,
supercross, motocross. You went all
no,
in.
no, no. Yeah. I picked a sport that I didn't have to carry my bike instead of ride it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, mate,
yeah.
that's
So
such a
that's
great way to honour
great.
him.
Yeah. And that was the turning point. And that's where it all changed.
Yeah, amazing. You're so open on your socials about your journey, and watching the way, from someone who doesn't actually know you at all, watching the way you move through your grief literally, whether it's you've recently done a push-up challenge for mental health. You've
Yeah.
done the Out of the Shadows walk for Lifeline.
Yeah.
You just did that this week, actually.
Yeah, I've still got 17
I
Ks to
bet you've
go,
still got some
actually.
blisters.
Yeah, not many people know this, but I'm actually disabled. I had a
No
bad
way.
motorbike accident 15 years ago, and I took my foot off, and I had it reattached. So, and I was in a wheelchair
Ooh.
actually a long time. And yeah, for me to walk that far is like actually a pretty big deal. But I remember I sat down to have a bite to eat, and I went to stand up, and I actually couldn't move. So I owe everyone 17 Ks, and I was going to do it today, but I'm still a bit sore, so tomorrow might be
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah. Give yourself enough rest in between. So whether it's, the challenges that you seem to love to put yourself through or your bike, and really just being on the land. It's clear from an outsider looking in that healing for you, it isn't just something that happens in your head. You're sort of channeling that through your body.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to explore something a bit deeper with what you share on social media. What role do you think that's playing within your community online, and how you share that so vulnerably, especially as a man? Because you don't like, not to sound condescending, because it's not coming from that place at all, but you don't often see men open up and share publicly, you know?
Yeah.
So, because I truly believe that men do express. It's just sometimes through action and through movement and through doing, which is its own kind of language. So how do you see that plays out within your community with what you do?
Well, yeah, I think,
Big question.
and it's as sad as it is, men don't speak up enough. I was one of them as well. So don't get me wrong. I would, a children's mother, say if there's a bit of conflict, I'd end up down the back paddock, and I would I'd avoid it, and just had that avoidance from it all, and shut out from it, and find myself coming back home when it was dark, just so I didn't have to have the argument or whatever was going on, or I don't know. It probably took some time before I got to that stage. We separated, obviously due to grieving differently. It just wasn't working. And they moved out, and I was down here by myself. And you can imagine the mind then definitely played some little tricks on me. He went and handed my guns in, just because I didn't think too crazily about that, doing that. But you never know, and I don't know. I've never walked this path, and you never know when you're going to wake up with that thought. And I
You're
didn't want.
safeguarding yourself.
Yeah, so I just took him in just to be safe, and I went and seek some professional help, and that was amazing. I wish more men would do it, because a lot of people, and people don't understand exactly what happens in those rooms. And I'll just give a little insight to that. You walk into a room, just like you and I are talking online. You can do it online, but you walk into someone, you don't know this person, and you get to say whatever the fuck you like to them, and just let it all out. And they do not judge you. They do not judge you. And they take it all in, press all that shit that you just fed them, and try to give you a few tools to step forward. It's actually a great thing to do. And if there's anyone that is listening to this and anyone's struggling, I'd highly recommend get a couple of sessions with a psychologist, because it's amazing. And you just get to unload on them, just like have all this info. It's like, download my hard drive and deal with all this shit. And she was great. So
amazing.
After a fair few weeks with that, it's probably quite a long time. I thought, you know what, that really helped me. And there's a lot of people that already touched base with me online saying, they were struggling with some shit, or kudos to you and whatever. I thought, you know what, fuck. Henry loved to help people. And I thought, well, I can honour him again. I'm honouring him on the bike, and now I can honour him again. I'll do what he loved. I can help people. Like, I can reach some people here. So I just opened up online, and it took, the first few times took a bit. It did take some bit. When editing some reels, I'm just like cutting shit out and putting it back. I fucking sound like a fucking bitch. What am I doing? Like, like I had that whole persona of being a man. You can't open up. Yeah, you can't open up. Like, I'm like, I can't open up like that. Like, I'm a man. I've got to be a man. I'm like, fuck this. I'm still a man. Like, I don't care.
You're a man with a shared experience that can help another man, and even not just men.
Anyone. Yeah, a child, a parent, a grandparent. It doesn't matter who it is. A friend. It doesn't matter. And then it was fine.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nothing bad come of it. So I just kept on doing it, and I think it is, a few people have seen it, and I think it has helped a few people, and I hope it does help a few people.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of Scott's story. This conversation has been deeply impactful, so much so that we've created 2 episodes to give Scott the time and the space to truly honour Henry's legacy. There's more to come, and I invite you to tune back in for the continuation of this powerful journey through grief, fatherhood, and healing. Thank you for listening and for feeling this with us and for being part of these conversations that matter.